Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to shade in black and white. So to do this I will use pencils, and you can use definitely any brand of pencils. I have a bunch of different ones. I've got really cheap ones, I've got drawing pencils. So I wanted to do this tutorial because I think that shading in black and white is a really great way to practice shading, because if you know how to shade in black and white, you will know how to shade in colors. Something that is really hard with colors is that each color is not really shaded the same way as the other colors. Sometimes you just don't know how to shade a red or how to shade a yellow. You can use definitely complementary colors, or it's really hard, and it's really easier to work in black and white because you only have to focus on the light and the shades and the shadows. You don't have to understand which color did you want to choose. And so this is the first thing that is really great to practice with black and white. Also, it's really great to practice with black and white and pencils shading, because you only have to go through dark to light. As you can tell, I've got here different areas. You have got the hair, I've got the face, the clothes, the cat, and I choose this one because you can see different texture here in this drawing. You have hair, you have also the fur for the little cat, you have skin, which is really hard to work and to shade in colors, and it's even harder in pencils. But you also have clothes. So one thing that I really wanted to just tell before we start is that shading with pencils, you just have to focus on what is the basic lightness or darkness of this area. Like, for example, do you want this girl to have a really light skin or a dark skin? And you don't have to select between 10 shades of flesh tone. For example, with Copic markers, I've got 10 shades of colors, and you don't know if you want to shade and to put a bit more of pink or yellow, and it's really hard. And with pencils, you only have to focus on basically she has a light complexion, a light skin color, or dark skin color, or medium skin color. And this is essentially the same for every kind of piece that you will shade only with pencils. You have to figure out which is going to be the lightest, which is basically white parts, and the darkest is going to be like a deep gray. And I wanted just to focus now on the basic rules, I guess, for shading in black and white and with pencils. The first thing that is really important, since you're focusing mainly on the lights and the dark parts, you have to define a light source. What is a light source? Basically, just picture when you do a drawing, it's like you took a picture of something or somebody, or basically a scene that you will do as a flat surface. But you have to define the light source, because this will define all the shades and the lights and the dark parts in your drawing. So defining the light source is really important working with pencils, or even if you work in colors, and it depends really on the drawing itself. So to define the light source, this is pretty easy. You just took your drawing, and how you can tell here that I'm just going to go a bit further here so you can just see a bit more an overall of the drawing. So you can see that she is facing a bit of her, she's sided, and you can see a bit of her back here. So how to choose a light source? You have to choose in a way that you will see light part and shade and dark parts. If I go here and I shade, for example, from here, from the right side, or I don't know how it's going to be on the camera, but for example, just picture this as a light source here. This means that all this part here is going to be light, and all this part is going to be almost dark. Something that is really wrong here, if I choose this lightning and this light source, is that the cat here, which is basically on her chest, you know, even if you can see, if you can tell that there's maybe a bit of the paws here that's going to be a bit more in the light. If I shade a bark here, if the light source is here, the cat will be in the darkness, so you won't be able to shade, and it's like you can't see it, you know. If I do this the other way, if I put here on the basically on the other side, this is going to be the opposite way. This means that all of her back and even the dress and all of this part here is going to be too dark. Then I can't put the light behind her. It's like it was under the drawing, you know, because all of this is going to be too dark. So the only way to shade, or mostly the only way, is to define a light source that is going to be other here, you know, just like it's going. Just picture this. You have to think in 3 dimensions, you know. Just picture like the drawing, the character, or any kind of drawing that you are making. Picture it in 3 dimensions, and you know, if you don't know how to do this, you just take your flat, you know, sheet of paper and you put it like this, you know. You picture it like she was a sculpture, and it's really nice. Also, if you have a mannequin, you know, something in wood, and you can just put on a light source. Just take a lamp or a torch, I don't know. Just take a lamp and you just put your lamp around it, and you just can see where you're going to put the lights and where is going to be the best. So for this girl, if I just put my, you know, my paper like this, I can tell that if the lights is coming from the front, basically, or at least like around, I don't know, maybe 100 degrees, you know, just picture something as a light source and just go over it like you will basically light, like it is a light. So I would probably focus on the cat and not on her back, because it's nothing special here. So I will definitely put on the light. So this is just a light, picture it as a light, and I will just focus on that, I'm positioning here the light source, and I will just keep in mind that all of the shadows will basically go on the opposite way. So therefore my drawing is going to be is going to have a really light shades on mostly this side and dark shades here, but not too much, because the light will come, you know, it's not front line, it's just slightly sided line, and this will make me, it's going to be easier to shade and to have the cat and the face, which is the best with the focus point. You know, I want people to focus more on the cat and the face, and so this is going to be the most lightest part. Sorry. I hope you understand everything. If you have any questions, just post a comment below and tell me, because it's pretty hard to explain in English. But yeah, so this is for the light source, and this is something that you will have also to think about when you work in colors. But when you work in colors, it's going to be easier if you have practiced a bit more with the pencils, for example, because you will know that basically light source is the lightest shade, and the other way, the opposite way, is where the shadows are. You know, it's really it's pretty basic actually when you practice a bit and you know where your light source is going to be. So yeah, this is for the first rule, I guess. Then another really important thing, especially when you work with pencils, because pencils pencils are pretty dirty, and it gets really smudgy, you know, when you work. So to prevent that, it is really important to work from one side to another. So if you, like me, right-handed, make sure you take a piece of paper, a clean piece of paper, well, basically white paper, like just plain white paper. And if you don't want to mess up your drawing, if you're right-handed, work from left to right. This means I will basically color or shade the left part of the drawing, and then move across to finish on the right side. If I do this the opposite way, and if I start to color here, when I will work on the other side, my hand is going to mess up all the work that I've done here. And of course, if you're left-handed, you just do it the other way. You start from right and you go to the left. And to prevent more of smudging everything, it's really handy just to use plain white paper and to put this under, so then you can just, move your hand and shade without messing up your drawing under. So then another really important rule is to work from light to dark. I know it sounds silly when I say that, but it's really important because when you work on paper, you don't, it's not like you're working on a software on Photoshop or any kind of stuff and you, oh my god, I just mess up, I want this part to be lighter, I want this part to be darker, and you basically just click something and you just repair any mistakes that you do on computer. But when you draw on paper, it's really, really hard. You can, well, one thing that is really important, from light to dark, why? Because you can always go darker, you know, when you have like a middle tone or a light tone, or you can always go darker. The darkest you can achieve with pencils, well, the darkest that I have is I think it's 9B or something like that. Pencils go from I think 6H, which is a really harsh and light technical pencils. The lightest that I have is 2H. I don't know if you can really see, it's 2H. So this is a really it's a light and hard pencil, you know. And the opposite way, which is the darkest that you can get, I think I have a 9B somewhere, or maybe 8. Yes, I've got 8B, as you can see here. 8B, it's Cretacolor by Monolith, which is a lead, basically. It's only a lead, you don't have wood in here. It's really, I really like this. And this is basically the darkest you can achieve is by saturating and, you know, just saturating the paper with the darkest gray you have. So you can always go darker until you achieve this part here, which is the darkest. But it's really, really hard to go lighter than the shade you just made. Basically, how to light this part here is just by using an eraser, you know, an eraser like basically this, or to scratch the paper. It's really, really hard. And if I just erase this, I would just have the dirtiest areas that you can get, because it's just, you know, it's you messing up basically. So really, it's really important. Always go lightly, you know, go slowly on the darkest side, because it's really hard to come back if you go too far. It's always going to be really easier to save some whites, you know, if you want a little gleam in the eye, if you want to add some light spot on the hair. It's going to be really more simple and easier to save these areas than to just have to erase them after. You can definitely have a clean eraser to add some lights, but you will still have a little bit of gray under it. So so this is one of the next rule: leave the whites. It's going to be really more convenient. It's like working with watercolors. You leave the white on the paper, and even if you're not sure that it's going to be white at the end, it's easier to then put colors on and, you know, to darken the whites. So yeah, I also use this flat eraser, and I use this a lot to clean, especially under hair sometimes. The last rule that I think is really important when you work with pencils is to use only pencils. Don't use markers or black markers or black other kind of stuff. When you want to really dark areas, especially for the background or the pupils in the eyes or any kind of really dark side, dark spot, use only pencils. Because when you mix pencils with, for example, a liner or a black marker, you will see the difference. Well, maybe if you want that result, but I don't really like it. But one thing that is really going to make the difference is that pencils has a really shiny finish. You can see this especially in the light. I don't know if you can really see the reflection on it, but pencils are shiny, really shiny and bright and silky, you know, a silky feeling. And any kind of marker that you will choose to put on the dark side, because you want really black, any kind of marker will have a matte finish. So if you have a matte finish, you will see the difference between the pencils and the marker, you know. So yeah, this is for the little rules introduction, and we'll just see you in a few seconds to actually start the tutorial. So I'm back. So as I told you before, I'm going to work on this illustration here, and I'm going to use a bunch of different tools. So of course I got my pencils. I've got here, I will probably start off with HB. I don't really use pencils more light than this. I don't use 2H and H and like this. I always start with the HB pencil. The HB pencil is basically it's like a middle turn, you know. This is the pencil that I will just basically sketch with it. It's just a middle pencil, nothing special about the pencils. It's not too thick, it's not too light, it's not too yeah, it's not too, I don't know how you can explain this, but HB, like if you go over it, like 2, 3, 4Bs, etc., you will get a more oily, darker color. I don't know, in French you call this fat, you know, it's like a fat gray. And if you go on the 2H section, it's like a really slim, light shade of pencils, I guess. So I always start with HB. Then you can just go over it. You have 2B, 3Bs, 4Bs, 6, well, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I think there's a 9 also, but most of the time I don't use like every number. I never use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and because I think it's just too much, and you just going to saturate too much of on your paper. So if you don't want to buy like a whole set of colors, a whole set of pencils, I would just recommend you to get, of course, the HB pencils. So this is an HB. You will just go then on the 2B, because there's a lot of difference between HB and 2Bs. So let me just find somewhere a 2B pencil. A 2B pencil. Then I will just go on the 4B. You don't really need the 3. Then just go other and take a 6, and then you can end up with the 8. You know, you just need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just need 5 pencils. This way you can really grade your shades, I guess. If you want to really have a bit more of middle shade, you can definitely get the all the collection and go through HB to 8B, or even to take 9B if you can find it. I don't have one. I think it exists, but yeah, basically I mostly use this because I don't see a really big difference. So now let me just shade something with only these pencils, not on a drawing, to just look what gradient and what shade you can get from light to dark. So to have a really light shade, you will just have to take the HB, or even start with the 2H if you want, but I like to work with the HB. And you can work with, I guess, you can work in many ways, but I like to work really sideways like this, and not like this, because if you work like this, it's really hard to you will feel the strokes, and you will also break the paper. So it's really handy to work in this style and to work in a really side motion, so you can really have a lightest touch, you know, like this. Then don't worry if it's not blending already, it's okay. Then you just take your 2B pencil and just go over it, and you can see already that it's a bit more darker and a bit more fat or oily, I guess. Then you take your 4B, and remember to always go light on the touch. I can definitely do a darker color with the 4B than I'm doing here, but it's going to be easier to come over it after you just put on the basic tones than to just already go really dark. Then the 6B, and every time I go in the darker, thicker pencil shade, I tend to press a bit more, you know, on the color, so it's really getting darker. And when you go on the 8, and this is the darkest you can get, you can, you know, focus a bit more on putting more colors. So I don't know if we can really focus this. As you can tell here, we've got this little spot which is going from HB to 8B, and it's already going to be like a nice gradient, nice shading from light to dark, you don't really need to have the middle tones. For two reasons. First, because you can already see that it's quite blendable, and the second, because you can definitely blend more, which is why I'm going to introduce to you, maybe if you don't know about it, this blending tool. Which is basically made of paper, I guess. So I use this to blend color pencils, to blend pastels, and to blend pencils. It comes in different size. I don't have a lot here. I don't know where are they. I just got this free here, and you can just sharp each side. And if you don't know how to sharp, you can basically use also a knife, an X-Acto knife or something, just to cut off a blade maybe. And this is really handy because you're just going to take take the, like you were basically holding a pen, and you can blend these colors by just using a motion like this. So when I do this, you can see that it's going to blend all the colors. Maybe like it's not blending the shades, but it's will helping to smooth out and to smudge the shade. Now, what you're going to see here is that I completely lost my lattice shade here because I just put on too much. So what you're going to do is use a clean pencil, a clean blending tool, and try to blend this until you have basically achieved to go to the white. And then you have the gradient here that you want to achieve. Now you probably think it's kind of ugly because you can feel this little stroke that I have here, and you have a blending area under it, which is kind of weird. So this is why I will always tell you to go light on the blending tool and to go light on the pencils itself, because here, how can I fix this? Just picture you were drawing something and you just put your little blending tool and you have this little stroke of colors. Then I will recommend you to take the middle pencils, which is basically 2 or 4B depending on the areas. If you work on the light skin, for example, just take a 2B, and or HB, and if you work on the darkest place, like if she has brown hair or dark hair, just take a 4B. And what you're going to do is go over like on all the area, but really smooth, really smoothly, and take don't go with the little strokes like this. I really like to work in circular motion, and this is called the frottis technique. I don't know if you can read, I don't know if there's a translation for this, but I really like to work with a bit of round texture like this, and really always on the side way. I only use this part, I only draw with the pencil like this to draw lines. For example, if you want to do the eyelashes, I don't go sideways, I really go with the thick. And this is basically the last thing that you will do on your drawing is maybe put on some really sharp line. And so yeah, this is the only way, and this is the only time that I will go with the little the pencil facing up like this. I always go on the really side, basically sideways. So you just go over it like this. And you can always shade with only one pencil if you really know how to practice the shading parts and the gradient, because you can always go lightest, just don't put too much pressure. And if you want the darker part, you just put a lot of pressure and you go a bit more angled to the top, to have a bit darker tone. And then you have achieved something a bit more, and you can just go over with your blending tool. And again, it's just going to blend like this. And this is basically what you're going to do each time you want to darker a place, darker an area. Then you're just going to come with, this time I'm using the 6B, which is really dark, and I really like to work only in circular motion, because it's really just more smooth. It's really easier to do a smooth finish with circular motions. And you can just go in another direction, you don't have to really focus on the same direction. So yeah, basically this is how I shade in pencils. Remember, you don't have to always blend after, but I really like to blend after. you know. So yeah, this is basically the technique I'm using when I shade in pencils. Let me just light. It's already dark. It's already almost. It's only 4 p.m. and it's already really dark outside. So yeah, this is basically the technique that I'm using when I draw with pencil and I shade with pencils. I don't really know how to explain a bit more than this, so I'm just going to go directly on the drawing, so I can just yeah, I could just shade it, and really you can really see how it works. So here we go for the actual shading of this illustration. So one thing that I really wanted to tell you before, so here I basically did a sketch on a little piece of paper, and I get on my computer, and I got on my computer to really rework on the illustration, and I print this so I can basically here you can really see the actual printing sketch that I have, and I just put this on my tracer to outline it and to have the sketch prepared on the paper. So one thing that I want to tell before I start, you can achieve different results with pencils. You don't have to go in the full realistic photo effect on a drawing. You can work with a really light touch, and you can already have a really nice result and a nice finish by basically put on your illustration. You're just sketching clean sketch like this, and use a blending tool, and you basically blend each line. Go and just start here with the eye, you know, just to see how it will work, and you can definitely just go in a really light touch, and you have a really beautiful finish by just blending each line that you just made. So let me just show this to you, what you can achieve. I'm just going to get my paper so I don't mess up the drawing, because I always do. So I can definitely take like my blending tool and basically just blend each line that I already have, because this will also help to put on the base shades, you know, the basic shades. Like you can just feel the way where you're going to darken the areas, or just go, you know, okay, it's already dark enough here. Now, how to shade depending on the light source. So remember I told you that my light source is going to be slightly here, you know, on the front, but not directly on the front, a bit more on the side part, so I can really shade the cat here. I can really shade the cat. Now this will be more helpful when you will see the anatomy video that I'm going to make, but to shade the drawing and to shade in black and white, you have to think in 3 dimension. Always think in 3 dimension. A face has bones, has cheek, you have temples, you have lids, you have eyelids, you have nose, and everything casts shadows. Basically, if I have my light source here, I don't know if you can really see it, but basically, just let me focus on the face here. If my light source, just picture that my light source is basically here on this part here. If I go slightly on the side, this means that everything that is in the opposite direction of this is going to be on the dark side. But you have to remember, everything casts a shadow. This, for example, on the face, the little nose here is going to cast a shadow on the other side. Even the lips is going to cast a shadow on his teeth, on her teeth, sorry. The lids and the eyelashes will cast a shadow on the inner part of the eye. You can basically just look at a portrait of somebody with different light sources. There's always shadows everywhere, even when you don't think there's a shadow, there is. Even hair strokes cast shadows. This means like all of these little hair strokes, and this one here is going to cast a shadow on her face. So it is really hard when you don't know really what you're doing, but you really just need practice, and you will just need to look at pictures and to look at anatomy books and to really focus on how basically to shade. You just have to know how your character, or how the thing that you're drawing, how is it made, the basic structure, the bones. Think it's really nice to practice if you do a bit more of modeling or sculpture, because you will be able to see how the shadows works. Just let me show you something really simple here, which is sorry, a dolphin. That I didn't make this. I'm just going to show you how it works. You can definitely see here, because I have a light source that is slightly on the side. You can see the little light spots and the shadow parts. Everything casts shadows. If I just put my hands, and the lights change every time. You have the shadow here. You have a bit more of the a more deep shadow here. You have everything is just changing depending on how I put on my little dolphin here. And if I just shade with this light or with this light, it's always changing. So of course you can't really make a sculpture of any kind of drawing of all the drawings that you're going to make. But it's a really nice practice to at least have a mannequin, something that you will just see how the lights is reacting with every bones and every features. But if you don't have a mannequin, basically just Google and search for model pictures, any kind of girl basically with a different light source, so you can just focus how it's made. So what I told you can definitely go really great way by just blending the clean sketch you just made. So I'm just going to start and do this on the face only. So I just stopped right here because, as I told you before, I will try mostly to not work on this right part of the drawing because I'm going to mess up a bit. I will just go on this after. So as you can tell, I've just basically blend just the basic lines that I just made for the sketch, and you can already see that it gives a bit more texture. And you can also see, and you will see this in a really more a fast way when you just practice this, that this blending tool it's already like darken the areas really fast. Go always really smooth and go light with these tools and the pencils, because it's already really dark and really fast. So I tried to not blend too much because I really want the skin to be really light, but just go really light on this part. Now I'm going to start to shade the hair, because it's just one of the hardest part, I guess, and also the longest part, because you have to shade basically each stroke or almost each strokes of hair, and it's going to be really hard to draw with pencils on hair, because you have to do a lot of motions. So I'm going just to explain to you a really fast technique to draw hair. So you're going to basically take a blending tool, like a thick one, or maybe even a piece of paper. You don't have to use this blending tool, and you're going to really blend all the basic lines that you have on your drawing. So I'm just going to do this on a little spot here and really blend everything in a stroke motion, like you will drawing these strokes. So I'm just going to do a little demonstration here, and I will just do all this hair in speed motion. So I'm just going to go here from, like, take a beginning point everywhere and anywhere. It can be anywhere. I'm just going to go from the darkest parts to the lightest. So any kind of hair that is basically under, how can I explain that? You have, how hair is basically made. You have like your little strokes that is going from the top of your head, and you have strokes that is growing from the back of your hair, just under your neck area. So all of this hair here is behind all this hair is behind my light source, because remember it's here, and it's also behind this little hair that is growing on the front part of her face. This is just going to come on the front part, on the front of her face. So everything here is darker than the little spot here. And one thing to explain that is just look at your hair on the really bright light, and you will just see everywhere that is going to be darker. So I'm just going to start off here, which is going to be darker, and slightly, like we're working with Copic markers, this is a really convenient tool. If you don't have this, I really think you just have to buy it, because it's really hard to work only with paper and to blend with paper. This is like a drawing blending tool. This is really, really nice. So I'm just going to start off with the darkers here, because I have a line, and I'm going to blend this line by doing little motions, and every time I go over it, it's going to blend and to dark a bit more, and it's just really nice to just do it the other way, and you already gradually building the shade of the hair or of the drawing, and then you just focused on each line that you have. It's okay if you mess up a bit, because we are already at a really light stage. It's going to be a bit more darker, but this is really handy to do this technique, especially if you want to have like blonde hair, because blonde hair is really hard to work with only pencil, because you will have to focus really on the lightest part. I don't know if you can really see what I'm doing, sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to go here. So as you can tell, I'm basically, it's like I don't use any pencils right now. I just made a sketch and I'm blending already the lines that I have, because this will give a really subtle and a really smooth texture. So what I'm doing here, I actually coloring, almost like coloring with my blending tool, to really achieve a flat and smooth basic gray tone, And don't worry, because actually this is going to be a bit more, which is going to be really darker, but this is just how I made when you want a really simple and soft gray to start. Then I'm just going to go over here and to go again, do over the lines that I just made on my sketch, and focused on the motion that you want to give. Remember that I will also make a tutorial on how to draw hair and how to really shade basically hair, because sometimes it's really hard. But someone asked me for the black and white tutorial, so this is why I'm just putting it today. But if you want me really to focus on how to draw hair and hairstyles and how to shade them, just tell me and post a comment below, and I will just make this video as soon as possible. Because it's really hard to explain everything when you don't know how to draw hair. But I don't know how can I explain a bit more of this. Hair flows, It's not like we're not Playmobiles. When you don't have plastic hair, or you don't have a lot of gel. So you basically need to really to just focus on how it flows and really do slight motion, round motions. Even if you have flat hair, you will always have little hair going all over the place, and you basically need to remember that hair is really it's really lightweight, so every kind of a bit of wind that is going to go through your hair is going to make them move. It's a really it's like I don't know how can I explain this. Like your skin is basically solid, wind won't deform your skin, but hair is going to be really moving and really lightweight, so everything is going to make them move. And it's really important to have this kind of dynamism when you're working with hair, and this is what I'm trying to achieve here. I'm trying to put on some lines and then do some other lines in the opposite way to make them really flowing, This is what I'm going to say. Just picture them flowing like there was a bit of wind, because even when there's no wind, you'll still have any kind of little hair that is going to flow everywhere. Even when you're speaking, when you're walking, your hair is always moving. So yeah, this is why I'm just basically focusing on my little sketch is a guideline basically. So I just finished here blending the basic lines, the sketch line that I just made, and you can already see the blending process, and you can definitely do this on all the drawing to have your basic settle really smooth finished, and you can just leave the drawing at its stage, because I think it's really nice to have this texture, and if you want you can just go darker. So now I'm going to blend every line, every basic clean lines that I have here, and to do the exact same thing that I did here on all of this part, and I will just see you after. So I'm just stopping right here because I wanted to explain, because maybe you will ask for it, how to shade this little cat here and how to shade animals, because they are really specific, because they have hair basically all over them. So it's like you were drawing basically the same thing that I told you before about motions and hair flowing, depending on the length of the hair, of course, but on the animals, working with fur is really hard. So if you don't know how to shade a cat, just go on Google and find some cat pictures. I have a cat here, so I know how the bone structure and the face structure is made. But it's really hard to work this and explain how to shade a cat. You just have to maybe find a cat sculpture or something like this to really focus on how it's working with the lights. But one thing that I really wanted to show now is how different motion you can use to blend the pencils. So I told you, you saw just a few seconds ago that I just did the little strokes of air by using this motion like this and really focusing on the basic structure of the air. But when you work flat structure, flat texture, or here fur, I really like to work in circular motion like this and to have a really soft pressure on your blending tool and just go over it like this, really light, to kind of making like a fur effect. And if you don't know how to do the fur effect, you can also use very little strokes like you will do with little hair. For example, this is just how you're going to achieve this little fur texture. So just go with not too much pressure, but just go with light touch, but firm, on this little fur area. And one thing also that is really great with blending tool, or it depends, it's great or bad, it depends, but it's really great at this stage you use the blending tool, because you have actually pencils, graphite pencil on your lead here, on the tip of this. I have already some gray that I can use to shade a bit more of some areas that I want. So yeah, you don't have to put more pencils, you can just use the remaining pencils that you already have on your blending tool. So this is really great, because every time you shade in your blend, it's like you're taking a piece, of your pencil lead on your blending tool, and then you can just put this medium, this pencil dust basically on another area. So this is really great. For the eyes here, you probably think, I don't know if I blend them or if I just go over it, because it's already pretty dark here, and eyes have really dark, almost black eyeliner. So you can just leave it like this if you want, and if you don't want to mess up, but I'm going to go over it because I really want to have this smooth out so I can really see my bone structure. And when you do this on the eye, you can actually see the little shadow casting. Do you remember the shadow that I talked about? Because eyelashes and eyelids are casting a shadow on your inner eye, and it's going to be exactly the same with with animals. So I'm just going to blend slightly here and focus also on this side of the nose. And just go on Google and find some anatomy structure for a cat to see how it works, because it can be hard when you never draw cats to really see how it works and to see how hair is implemented and how it's going to flow basically on your little animal. And remember that we are just at the basic lightest shading for now. You have nothing to worry about. If you mess up a bit, you can always fix this at this stage, because we are on a really light scale for now, you know. So it's okay if you mess up a bit. Just focus on blending slightly each line that you have. For the arm here, I'm just going on the side part of my blending tool and focused on the flat shading. Don't go round here. Just go on the flat shading and try to intensify a bit more under the darker spot here, which is basically the connection between the cat and her arm is going to be really darker. And remember, since my light source is going from the front and slightly on the side, this part is going to be really light, because there's the light is coming right here. The dark part is going to be the opposite way. So here it is slightly darker, but not too much. You can also use your finger, you know. And if you have your blending tool which is a bit more too gray, you just take another one which is more clean, and you're just going to go over, you know, to blend it. To blend your blending pencil, which is kind of weird to say, but this is how it works. Also, if you mess up a bit with the background, if you just go over a line and you, oh my god, I just messed up, it's okay, depending on the background you want. I like to have a really dark background, but you know, you can always just take an eraser and clean it if you just mess up. I'm just going to erase a bit here. So yeah, I'm just going to finish on shading the lines here, and just go after. So now that I finished working on the basic blending part of the left side of the drawing, I'm just going now to explain how to enhance everything. So you can just basically do it like two different ways. The first way is to take your HB pencil, the basic pencil that you actually sketch with, and you can just go over some darkest parts to put on a bit of like if you were putting more pencils. So for example, if I just go here under hair, and I just go in around its motion to enhance a bit here with the HB pencil. And remember to always go really light. And then you can just actually draw the little strokes of hair with the pencil, and you gradually going darker by applying more pressure. So I can just go like this. Then you can leave it like this way if you want to have a really rough texture, and you can just go over with a 2B pencil, etc., and go darker. Or you can just use the blending tool each time you basically put on more layers of pencil. So if I just go with the blending tool again, it is going to be a bit more darker each time I use it. So I can just go over again and blend everything to have a really smooth finish. You know, like that. And then take a 2B pencil and go again all over it to darken the area a bit more. And each time you're doing this, you're applying more pencil to the paper and you're saturating the paper. This means that at some point you won't be able to put more pencil because your paper will completely be like too dark and too pencilized. Will just get more like too much pencil, and your paper is going to be soaking, like soaking pencil. So I just go like this, and you're just going all over again with your pencil. If you are scared that it might mess up your actual texture, just clean your little blending tool. You can use like a nail file, you know, just like something, or an eraser, maybe, if you can erase it, or just sharp the little pencil blending tool. You can also use some Q-tips. I've got some here to blend. You know, you can just use a Q-tip, but it's not really precise, so I don't really use this. What I'm just going to do is actually clean the edge and sharpen, so I have a really sharp area. Yeah. You can also use sandpaper, which is what I got here, and then I have a clean blending tool to come all over and to come over my darkest spot here. You just go really slowly with your pencil, and you will just figure how to do it. You know, the more layers you put on. And this is how it works. Basically, this is how I shade with pencil. And I'm just going to shade a bit more on this area so you can see how it's just working. So I just found the little the tiniest blending tool that I have, and it's really nice for fine details like this one. And maybe there's also a smaller one. Yeah. So I would just go and try to do the hair here in a speed motion. So see you after. So one thing that is really great with the pencils also, as you can tell by looking at this little braid here, with the lead side, if I just go in the sideway like this, I can basically do little smooth areas, you know, by just going like this. And if I use the actual tip of it, I will just go like this really hard, and you can actually draw thick lines to define more what I'm doing. So this is how it works when you shade with pencil. You're basically switching between smoothing texture and really thick lines like this. So now I'm just going to blend everything that I just did here. I will just go all over here again to how to darken and to really go in the darkest place. So I've done here only 2B. You know, there's only HB and 2B here. Depending on what hair color or hair shade you want, of course, you don't necessarily have to use the really 8B pencil. You can just finish with a 2B or 4B. It is really hard. It's a really hard technique. It's really taking time, but you can have really great results. So I'm just going to finish the hair, and I see you after. I basically use the 2B pencil and I just draw each stroke of hair. Then I use my blending tool to blend everything, and I try to focus mainly on the darkest spot and the lightest spot. So as you can tell by here, I try to create that flow that I talked about in the hair. So I've got here darker areas and I've got lighter area, and at this stage it is really important to really place your little light and darkest spot, because this is the way that you're going to see where to enhance each spot. Basically, now I know that the really darkest area is going to be in this darkest spot here, and the lightest area, this is the place that I'm not going to touch anything because I want this to be really light. So it is really important at this stage to really not go too much over it, and don't blend too much, because each time you blend, you're laying color, you're laying shade of grays, and you are going to mess up all of the whites or like lightest parts that you saved. So it is really important at this stage to really work in the darkest area really slightly, and to put a bit, just a little bit of the darkest, like this is the 4B. Where's my 4B? So this is the 4B, and just going here really slightly put on the little really tiny strokes, because this is going to be in the darkest area. And remember, you can always go darker, but you can't go lighter. So if you put on too much, you're going to mess up your drawing. So I'm just going here and put little touch, really like go really light pressure on this part, and try to, I don't know how to really explain this. You have to practice to feel the touch of it, but really go really light, and focus on the darkest area like this. Go slightly, slight motion, low motion, slow. You enhance a bit. You don't put too much, and you're good. And then again, go with your blending tool and blend slightly what you just made, going all over your little strokes to create the motion and to create the flow that you want. This is just how it works. If it's too small, just take another one and go all over it. Try to blend a bit and go always light on the touch. Don't go too much all over your lightest spots. Just go like this and blend everything until you achieve a nice and smooth result. If you want to go darker, take again your 4B pencil and go all over it, all over again, to darken just some areas here and to really focus on the darkest parts. And switch with your blending tool to blend just what you did. This is just how it works. And this is how you're going to really build your gradient and build like in 3 dimensions, which just what I told you before. So I'm just going to finish off with the hair. I'm basically doing this this is the steps that I do for all the drawing. I just go, with 2Bs and blend, then I go with the 4B and blend, and I go with the 6B and blend until you achieve the darkest spot that you want to get. Basically, under here, I will go here with the really darker pencil, but I don't want to do this right now because I'm going to mess up a bit. I would just focus mainly on this part, and then I will just go after on these areas only when I know which really basic shade, basic tone, I guess, for the hair that I want to have. Right now, I think her hair is nice texture, but a little bit too light for me. So if your overall areas, for example, hair here, if you think that is too light, remember what I just told you, you can always go darker but not lighter. So if you think that your overall areas is too light, you just take a blending tool or even a piece of paper and you put on little motion like this. You can even use a sponge, for example, like, this just weird sponge here, and you just go slightly all over it to smooth out everything. So you kind of like darken down all the areas in one spot, you know. You're just going to darken a bit. Don't use your finger for this because you're going to have really messy finger. So now I'm just going to blend everything because I want the head to be really darker than this. So you can just take a paper. I'm just going to take a paper for this. Just take a piece of paper, any kind of paper. You can also use like blending paper, but I think any kind of paper is working. You just take a piece of paper and you blend like in really smooth round motion like this. This is going to help smooth out everything in your drawing. Don't go too much because you're messing up, you can mess up the texture. Just go slightly all over like this, and you're blending everything, and it gives really nice texture also. And then I just darken down, you know, darken everything in one spot. And then you can just come over and blend everything with the little flow stroke motion I just show you. At this stage, you can always, because it's not too dark, you can just take an eraser and erase some parts that you want to have really white spots, but it is really the far that you can get. If I go all over again, and it's going to be too dark. But right now, I'm happy with the shade that I just made. I'm just going to show you one last thing. If you want to have white again, this is now that you want to get it. This is now and not further, not later, because you won't be able to find it to have it. So you just have a clean flat eraser like this, and like you were drawing something, you basically draw with an eraser. This way you can just have little white coming again on your drawing like this. And this is really going to bring more depth to your drawing. Now, to remove any leftover of eraser, you can use a brush. You can mostly use a clean brush, because if you just put your fingers to remove it, you're just going to mess up everything. So just use a clean brush and slightly brush it out to remove the eraser parts, the leftover of the eraser. You can also blow to remove everything. So this is how you can achieve a nice texture, and this is like really middle grays. You can definitely go really darker than this, but at this point, if you want to go darker, remember to not go all over your white erased areas, because it's going to be really hard to really erase everything after. So yeah, I'm just going to go all over now with the eyes, so you can see, and the face, so you can see how you can shade and blend on the face. Whereas the hair, you just have to switch between the blending and the pencils, but you don't have this little stroke motion, like flowing motion. You have really to focus on the bone structure of the face. So you remember that my light source is coming from here, you know. So this means like most of her face is going to be bright and light. I would just have to really darken and shade a bit of her cheeks here, slightly under the mouth, under the eyes, and mostly under here, under the hair, and on her neck. But you know, mostly it's going to be really light. So to achieve that, you just need a really clean blending tool, Now for this part, you don't really need a sharp blending tool. You just need a round, like almost round shape tool, and you're just going to blend on the opposite, like just basically blend the lines. This is how you're going to achieve that smooth blending effect only on the outline, you know, of her face. I'm just going to go here on, like, under her forehead, because there's hair, so it's going to be really a bit darker, of course. Then here, blend each line basically. So I know I just told you that I'm supposed to not work on here and just go focus on the left part here, But for these, just for the tutorials, I'm just going to show you how to shade the face. But remember, you should draw on this part only when this part is finished. Then I'm just going all over this little hair thing here, and really light. So as you can tell, I didn't put any pencil here. I'm just blending the sketch line. Now you will feel at some point that the more you blend, the more your basic sketching line will disappear. So it's going to be pretty hard at some point to really see your basic drawing, what it's supposed to look like. So now I'm starting to, my guideline is almost disappearing. So I would just have to go with a 2B pencil or even an HB pencil to really focused on my basic drawing lines, so I don't lose my guidelines. So I'm just going to do this all over my basic guidelines. And then I'm just going to take my really tiny blending tool. So yeah, this is basically how my illustration. There's nothing more special here. So I'm just going basically to finish this drawing, and you will see this in speed motion, and I will talk to you after when it's actually finished.
finally I finished it. It took me more than 8 hours to actually finish the drawing, but it took also like 10 hours to edit and copy and mix everything and do the voiceover. But I finally made it, and I hope you weren't bored of this video, because it's more than 1 hour, but I couldn't really make a tutorial with like in 10 minutes, so that's why. And I just try to explain as the best as I could and teach you how to work in black and white, because I think it's a really great technique. So I hope you will try it. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye!